Get to know local leaders, catch community updates, and hear about the latest happenings from City Hall and beyond on City Notes, an informative and hyperlocal interview series brought to you by the City of Nicholasville. I'm here with Kentucky League of Cities Executive Director J.D. Chaney. Today we're talking about Kentucky League of Cities, one of the nation's most successful leagues of its kind, and what that means for Nicholasville. J.D., thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Brandel, and appreciate the opportunity to join you.
Can you start us off by telling us a little bit about your background and what about it led you to this role?
I appreciate being able to work for all the cities in Kentucky. I just happened chanced upon this job 22 years after starting it. I was raised in Kentucky, in rural Kentucky, in Waco, over in Madison County, and went off to Montana to get an undergraduate degree when I thought environmental law, but came back after graduating from the University of Montana to go to UK law school, and wound up doing an internship or law clerk program here at the Kentucky League of Cities 22 years ago, and never did leave. So it was supposed to be a temporary job. But the reason I stayed is because it meshed so well with my political beliefs, the area of the law that I was interested in, being able to represent local officials, and that fundamental belief that local decisions are best made at the local level. I really took to that in this area of the law and believe in what our cities do. And so I fell in love with the place, the mission of the organization, and the people that we work for across the whole state, representing all of Kentucky cities. So I am a municipal lawyer. I know corporate law, spent a lot of time in the legislative area, training and education, and have been in all facets of the organization, and now privileged to be its CEO and executive director here for the past almost 4 years.
Fantastic. So Kentucky League of Cities works closely with more than 370 Kentucky cities and municipal agencies, including Nicholasville. How do KLC and Nicholasville work together? What does that look like?
Well, several aspects with Nicholasville. A lot of my bosses come from Nicholasville. Mayor Carter is on our board of directors, but we have two more Nicholasville staffers that are on the board of directors. It's the most represented city on our KLC board of directors. We have association membership on our board. Kathy Walker is current president of the Municipal Clerks Association of Kentucky, so she has a seat on the board. And Darren Sammons, who's a city attorney there in Nicholasville, is president of the Municipal Attorneys Association of Kentucky at the same time, so he has a seat on the board. So the city of Nicholasville right now is the most represented city on the KLC board of directors, given the fact that there are three members. But we work for, our organization was formed in 1927 for the purpose of representing city interest in Frankfort and Washington. Even though cities are very different, I think that's one of the great assets of the Commonwealth, the diversity in our communities. There's a lot of commonality there, and especially when dealing with state and federal policy. So the organization was formed to be able to represent those common interests of city governments in the legislative process. So we do that for the city of Nicholasville. We get plenty of feedback, obviously, from the city of Nicholasville, city of Wilmore, but also Hickman and Fulton and Ashland and Covington and Corbin, all at the same time to fashion policy positions and things that we need to see enacted to further enable our local officials to best serve their constituency. And so a lot of that direct instruction of what positions we're going to take is coming from those board members, even though any member can weigh in. And in particular, clerks, I'll give a hat tip to Kathy Walker, and city attorneys are doing the functional and practical aspects of running the city government. So they have a lot of practical suggestions about how our policy ought to be formed. City clerks across this state, by and large, are the foundational or the continuity for city government. So they know, they provide some really key advice as well as the elected city officials, which are the most numerous on our board of directors. City of Nicholasville, also, we're the insurer for the city of Nicholasville, both for property, liability insurance, workers' compensation insurance, in addition to providing legislative services. We also are the insurer. So the police cruisers in your city, City Hall, those are insured through the Kentucky League of Cities. So we're the insurance carrier to ensure that in the event of risk, cities face a lot of risk. In case there's a loss, that the taxpayers don't have to pay that directly. Cities don't retain risks; they purchase insurance, just like you do for your homeowner's insurance, your auto insurance. So we focus on loss control through that insurance department, helping the city build a safer workplace for their employees to reduce the risk of loss. But we're kind of the one-stop shop. We may help with IT concerns. We provide cyber insurance coverage as well, education and training. We provide a lot of opportunities for city officials to be able to learn how municipal governments functions, how planning and zoning works, any kind of topical area from annexation to zoning. We train elected city officials and non-elected city officials on as well, because the mission of the organization is just to be a service to those that have volunteered essentially to serve as elected leaders in their communities.
So you mentioned that you've been doing this type of work for 22 years. In your experience, what does responsible city government include?
Responsible city government is a responsive city government. I think the beautiful thing about Kentucky cities, for all 414 of them, 380 of them or so are members of the league. The reason I love my job is because those people that are serving in those roles aren't politicians for the most part. The average salary of mayors in Kentucky is $6,000 a year. So nobody sits in those seats or runs for those offices in order to gain fortune, for sure, or fame at all, unless you like getting a call in the middle of the night about potholes or barking dogs or things of that nature. But cities are in the quality of life business. The reason cities exist is just to improve the quality of life for the constituents they serve, and those people serving in those roles are real public servants. So if they're in it for that, and the vast majority of Kentucky elected city officials are, then they are mission driven as well. That the programs they put in place, the infrastructure that they invest in, they're stewards of the taxpayer money, and that money should be leveraged and used in the best way to retain talent, to attract jobs, to improve the quality of life of the constituency. And so responsible city government is one that's responsive, listens to its members of the public, that's in tune with that. I think when you're at the city level, that happens so naturally. You go into the grocery store, go into the gas station, anywhere you go, most everybody knows their mayor, their commissioners, those that serve in an elected city office. So they get a tremendous amount of input from their constituency about whether you need to address public safety or build more parks. And you think all of those things just make life better for those they serve, whether it's utilities or fire service or other things like that you take for granted sometimes on a day-to-day basis. But a city government that has that at its heart, and officials that have that in their hearts, I think are the best responsible and responsive city governments.
What would you say is one of the most impactful issues affecting cities in Kentucky today?
The same thing that's happening in the private sector. It's not getting a lot of attention because everybody's kind of in the same boat with regard to recruitment and retention of employees. The police staffing is a nationwide issue, and you think of the backbone of city government being public safety, and the difficulty of recruiting and retaining law enforcement individuals or keeping them there through a career is a real challenge in that sector. What a lot of people aren't talking about too is public works. You think of people that have to repair sewer lines or dig ditches or put asphalt and repair streets and roads and do the public works functions. The salaries that city governments can pay for those jobs against other competitive jobs out in the private sector is really draining in terms of the number of individuals that occupy those public service uh, positions, public works positions. So that is a major issue. Cities are never going to be fully automated, and city governments, artificial intelligence, even though all these things are on the horizon, the impacts of those developments, whether it's automation or artificial intelligence, are never really going to be able to replace the human element, the service element that it takes for individuals to occupy those positions. So that is a major challenge for cities as we go forward, figuring out how we can be competitive in the labor market, especially in a few areas. And that really relates back to revenue as well, and the way cities collect revenue. Tax. I know tax is a dirty word, but in Kentucky we rely so heavily on taxes on productivity. We don't have at the local level really any consumption-based taxation options. So no local city, even though 38 other states kind of allow their cities to do some sales tax, so that way occupational taxes aren't as high. We have a 1891 restriction in our Constitution that kind of keeps us from having that flexibility to diversify the way we raise revenue and keep up. So those are major issues that'll be major discussions in state policy making over the course of the next 4 or 5 years, maybe decades, in terms of the challenges that we face.
So how can residents get involved and support their city?
Civic engagement has been something that cities have struggled with for a long period of time, long before I got to the league, and probably will for a while after. The COVID, Brandon, when COVID came, a lot more people tuned in they had more time, first of all, but they also, where cities started streaming their meetings on Facebook or other kinds of Zoom in order to attend, we saw a lot more citizens start to participate. That's kind of gone downhill now post the COVID. Post COVID, I guess we can't say post COVID, but post the epidemic, I guess we see less and less because people's lives are kind of going back to normal. They're running their kids to the sporting events. They have the church activities. They have their normal work where they're reporting back to work, not working remotely. So we've seen it decline, kind of go back to a pre-COVID normalcy. But citizens can now engage and go to the meetings, and those are public. Those are publicly advertised. If you're interested in what your municipal government, county government, school boards, special districts, library, what they're doing, they all have to post a regular meeting schedule and notice a special meeting. So there's an opportunity for citizens to become aware when those bodies are gathering and when they're making public decisions. So one, becoming aware of it is a really good first step. And most cities in Kentucky have continued to broadcast their meetings through Facebook, through other media channels, rather than just going solely back to you have to be physically present in the city council chamber or city commission chamber in Nicholasville's case, just in order to participate. So you can do it that way. There are so many boards and commissions in city governments that there's an opportunity that are volunteer boards and commissions. A lot of cities have utility commissions. Nicholasville's not one that has a utility commission, but code enforcement, advisory committees that address health and welfare, community programs, things of that nature that people can serve on in a volunteer capacity as well if they want to start getting even more engaged. And then the ultimate engagement would be to put yourself on the ballot and run for one of the the city elected seats. Not that I'm soliciting anybody to run against the folks currently in office in any city here in Kentucky. We have great elected city officials, but people retire, people come along. If you really want to get engaged after serving in a volunteer basis and learning about municipal government, serving in one of those volunteer roles and then ultimately running for city office is a great public service.
That's good advice. So volunteer, join a board or commission, and then potentially run for an elected office.
Yes,
Sounds
ma'am.
good. JD, thank you so much for all you do for Nicholasville, Wilmore, Jessamine County, all of the cities that are part of the Kentucky League of Cities. And thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate it.